In front of me, I have 100 flashcards, and I'm going to attempt to memorize all 100 in 30 minutes. Why am I doing this, you may ask? I just want to see if I can. Earlier in the day, I wrote down a list of 100 words that I didn't know how to say in Portuguese. These words range from everyday words such as grey or steering wheel to words that people rarely use, such as platypus or to flail. Then, I plugged it into the translator and recorded all of the translations. After this, I cut up index cards into little flashcards and transcribed all of the words onto the mini flashcards. Finally, I set up the recording and got to work. Memorizing that many words that quickly was something that I was totally unprepared for. I had originally wanted to do 100 flashcards in 10 minutes, but by the time I had gone through all of them once, it had already been 5 minutes, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to do it. However, it was okay because I'd prepared for this. I thought that 10 minutes might not be enough time, so I decided to try for 15 minutes. At this point, I had already separated the words into the ones that I might struggle with and the ones that I thought I could guess reasonably well, whether it be from an English conjugate or a word that I had previously memorized but then forgot. However, by the time I got all of the words right at least once, the 15 minutes had passed. At that moment, I decided 30 was the magic number, so I put my head down and got to work. And it was harder than I thought it'd be, to be honest. The words started blending together, so I started using strategies to memorize them. For example, to harvest is colheitar. I never would have remembered that if it weren't for this trick I used. When you harvest crops, you collect them, which sounds like colheitar. Or, for example, the word for leash in Portuguese is coleira, which sounds like collar, which happens to be the thing that a leash attaches to. That sort of thing. As I kept on going, I realized that the most difficult words to memorize in this challenge were the ones that sounded similar. For example, to drown, to extinguish, and to pend are se afogar, apagar, and ofegar, respectively. All of them have the same amount of letters, end in gar, and go vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant. However, I didn't have too much time to really be able to figure out these differences because time had run out, and it's time to see how much I was able to memorize. Correr, melão, placenta. Nice! 97% accuracy after 30 minutes. That was exhausting. But it was fun. Yeah, we'll see in a week if I still remember half of these. So, it has now been 8 days since I memorized these flashcards, so now it's kind of a test to see if my memorization went into long-term memory or short-term memory, and what the extent of this memorization was. Let's get memorizing, I guess. Or I should say, let's get flashcarding. Let's get going. The process of actually recalling the words was kind of stressful because I thought there was a lot on the line. This wasn't actually the case, but it was still nerve-wracking for this reason. And being on camera did not help at all. Let's see how I did. Okay, raw score. 76% was my score the second time around, as opposed to my 97% the first time. Out of these, let's see how close I was. Let's see how many I just really didn't know. 88% were words that I either knew or I was close to knowing. I had an idea. 12%, I had no idea. And now, the more interesting part, let's see how many of the ones I already knew were conjugates of English words. So 26% of the words that I memorized, 26% of the words in the word bank were ones that were conjugates of English words, or very, very similar to English words. So 28 of the words that I was able to memorize, I had some sort of trick or key or hint that I used in order to memorize them. And for example, leash in Portuguese is coleira, which isn't exactly conjugate, but it reminds me of collar, which is really close to leash, which is how I was able to memorize it. So it's just like those kind of things were in 28 cards or 28% of the deck. As for pure memorization, 22% of the deck I purely memorized with no tricks and was somewhat stored into long-term memory, or 22 cards out of the cards that I got right. The rest were conjugates. So if you just want to go pure memorization into long-term memory, I got 22% of the cards, which doesn't sound like a lot, but also you'll have a lot of loanwords in different languages, so it's really in the eye of the beholder. And again, as a reminder, when I chose these words, I chose words that I didn't know how to translate at the time, and then got the words. And for some of these, like the ones that I had a trick for, I'd already known it. So like gray is quinza in Portuguese. I had no idea what gray was before I got the translation for it, but when I got the translation for it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember learning about this now, so it's easier for me to remember. Stuff like that. And that's it for my memorization journey. Now I'm actually gonna memorize these for realsies over the next month or two, which maybe I'll make a video on how I try to memorize words and put it into long-term memory. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Ciao.